Hello, Internet. We are back. We have Kevin Johnson with us, Entrepreneurship. I say once again to you, this is important because there will be a time when you're going to need these skills. And even if you're in business already, you need these skills. I think today, Kevin, we're talking about more sales unit.
That's correct.
This is something I'm really looking forward to. So thanks for your time once again. I'll be the guinea pig and over to you.
Well, thanks, Gwers. So before we get into the more sales unit, which is the fourth floor, what I'd like you to do is to pull out that sheet of paper and just spend some time on the ground floor, your HQ, because last week when we spoke about it, the brigadier, the entrepreneurial brigadier came to visit you and the entrepreneurial RSMO Bertolino came to visit you. So there's no doubt you must have had quite a few things to chat about. So I just want you to reflect on what you guys spoke about. And then before we go on to the other floors, I just want you to sort of ask yourself, what have you actually learned from those conversations with them? And so that, you're making sure that when you go to play the game up on the fourth floor, it's the right course that's going up to the fourth floor. So I'll give you a couple of examples quickly. This morning when I was on my ground floor, I looked at a couple of things. So the one thing I looked at was, and I said it in the previous videos, that for this quarter, there's about 1,600 hours that I want to get rid of. Yeah, it's about 1,600, the equivalent of 1,600 hours per annum. I want to get rid of that. So I'm working on that. Then also had a look at my list for my health. And then also what I did is I had a look at some of my sales techniques. So I want to share something with you, Gwers. You remember I just said to you that I'm not a big reader, but decades ago, I was given this book, The E-Myth Revisited. Okay. There is another book that I was given in the 80s. And I want to give you a little bit of a background to this, the 1-minute salesperson. When I was at the bank, they send you on many courses, and some of the courses pertain to marketing and sales, and I found the stuff very complicated. So when I got back, I had a fantastic boss. He was really a maverick, and he said, "How did you find it?" And I said, "Well, I like to paddle my own boat, and some of the stuff I just felt like was really just classroom stuff." And then he introduced me to this book, The 1-Minute Salesperson. And if we progress it to where we are now, okay, I've digested this book big time. And what I did is I compiled about 5-6 years ago, I compiled about 21 emails that run in sequence coming out of this book. So I just don't read books for the sake of it. I read a few books and then I study them. This is one of them that I studied. So I've got 21 emails and they run in sequence and they sit in my CRM and they were an autoresponder. So every quarter I put the autoresponder on and then it just automatically comes to me. So I'm looking at those 21 emails, quarter in, quarter out, quarter in, quarter out. And I do a lot of thinking around those emails that come to me. Some of the emails might have about 9 paragraphs. Some might only have 2 paragraphs. And it all pertains to this book. I've never had to go and read and do any sales courses after I found this book. So I thought I'd just share that with you. So those are the things that I basically just looked at on the ground floor. So you want to just take some time quickly and have a look at your ground floor and see whether there's any questions you want to ask?
Yes, and I've been looking at it. Is it okay, Kevin, if you're not always, I don't want to use the word switched on, but not always in the flow? And should you not be for some reason, how do you get back by playing the game?
Well, the thing is that playing the game, which in my case is 40 minutes, rest 10, 15, play the game, then second half 40, ask myself what's not working, what is working. That gives me a better chance to get into the flow. But to be realistic, you can't get into the flow every game. But it gives you a better chance of getting into flow. So therefore, by playing the game, if I'm making my own attention my property, not being distracted, there's a sense of awareness which builds up concentration. That concentration builds up the power that I need to be effective. If I just get that, that's multiples better than just meandering around. So now, in answer to your question, you can't always get into flow. So it's almost like sleep. You can't say I must sleep. You first got to rest in bed, and then you'll fall asleep. Well, to get into flow, just go play the game.
Yes, I've been ill the last 7 weeks. Well, not dying type of ill, but where you're uncomfortable and then you're not really. So the one thing I've realized here is you actually have to look after yourself.
Oh, for sure. I play games with me and it works fantastically well. So you take, for example, that 1,600 hours and that. So let's just say I am ill. And I go, I won't be able to do any work today. Rather than getting upset about it, I say, how can I get upset about it? Because when I am okay, I waste time. So it's all bullshit. You don't need as much time every day if you're utilizing the time where you show more commitment and courage rather than just ballast bucking in your comfort zone. So if you're sick, then you lie there and you chill out, you relax, read a book. You can't be hard on yourself because when you are okay, you waste time. So rather than hammering yourself while you're ill, why don't you, when you're feeling better again, stop ballast bucking and utilize your time effectively. I went for a 3K run this morning, did about 1,600 meter sprints and that. So, for my age, I'm pretty fit, etc., etc. But let me tell you, when I get flu or anything like that, I stay in bed till I'm better. Because that's what the body needs. When you're not feeling well, you've got to rest, rest, rest.
Now, that's good advice.
Yeah. Anything else there on the ground floor before we move up?
No, I think that answers it. Thanks.
Okay, so we go quickly past the first floor, check in there. Who do you want to be a hero to? What gives you the right to say you've been a hero? Check there quickly, see everything's okay. Any questions?
No, I'm fairly sorted who I want to be a hero to and why.
Okay. So then we go quickly to the second floor. So, you're coming up with compelling material. You've got a system that's in place to start receiving those leads. Any questions on that floor?
No, I'm fine. I
Good.
get the principle. Thanks.
Let me go up to the sales unit and we can recap there on that PDF of last week. There's a core objective. How do you make it easy for your prospects to say yes? So in other words, you're going to make your offer more compelling. And then secondly, the strategic objective. How are you going to ensure that every client comes on board, gets that experience that they want in? So you can't leave it to the moods of people on that floor working for you. It's got to be a system-driven initiative. So someone once said there was a guy that started boutique hotels, and he said to the staff when they get employed, we've systemized the predictables. Okay, and he says, and we've humanized the unpredictables. So in other words, when something goes wrong in the hotel, there's a staff onto it straight away, because all the other stuff that's systemized, they've sort of like, or should I say, all those things that are predictable, they've systemized already. So the hotel was a system-driven business. He gets it right at one hotel, he just lifts and he plugs it into the next hotel he starts. Okay, so any questions on that floor?
No, we're fine.
Right, so now we go up to the more sales unit. Okay, so the bridge between the sales unit and the more sales unit is where, as we said last time, you've given them, that's the client, something that's, okay, personalized, relevant, and unexpected. Not before you got the money from them, but after you've received the money and did whatever you had to do in the fulfillment of the sale. You gave them something. Okay, now that is the crossover and the bridge from the sales to the more sales unit. Now, the two big things, and not limited to what I'm going to share with you today, because, you know, these are timeless things, so we just keep revisiting it every quarter, and I'll share more with you. But the two big things that you want to achieve in your more sales unit is you want to create lifetime value with your clients. So then there's two jobs that you need to do there. The first job is, how do you serve them for life? Now, some people will say to me, well, Kev, you know, in what I do with my clients, it's not for life, only 3 years. Well, then you just rephrase the question. How do you serve them for 3 years? And then job number 2 is, how do you expand the value that you're adding? How do you expand the value you're adding? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example there of something that I did for the biggest seller of heavy goods trucks and commercial vehicles in Europe. So they sell the vehicle, and it's obviously B2B, because, you know, the consumer, the private person doesn't buy, B2B. And I said to the 11 sales managers, when that person picks up the vehicle or you deliver it. What is it that they need now that they're the owner of that vehicle? 1 year out, 2 years out, 3 years out. And when I say owner, they could be leasing it, they could have paid cash, they could have done it on hire purchase or operating lease, makes no difference. But the vehicle's in their possession. You know, normally 3 to 5 years is the contract. And they go, oh, no, we know that. And I said, right, compile the list. We in an environment like this. And they gave me the list. I said, well, that's fantastic. So I said, let me work on that. And then the two younger sales managers who are more open-minded, I say to them, will you do me a favor? Could you also ask 10 clients? Now, what actually happened is 10 clients gave us feedback that wasn't actually achieved from those 12 or 14 sales managers that had decades of experience. So there's an example of, don't just assume you know what your client wants. Okay, so basically what those clients were wanting were things like the renewal of the license, a reminder on tips around comprehensive insurance, a reminder when they're coming out of the manufacturer's warranty, and the list went on and on and on and on. So what I did is I then said to the guys, okay, you can automate all of this in your CRM. Plus, we asked the client, how do they like to receive notification? So some say, oh, on those two things, it's very important. I don't always look at my emails. Could you text me? So if you've got a proper CRM system, you can set it up in a way it just automatically does it. Likewise, with some, they say, just send us an email. Now that is an example of job number one. How do you serve them for life? Okay. Then in job number two, how do you expand the value you add? Well, in that example I've just gone through with you, you go, so if you are in the business of earning insurance commission, you can educate them, 3 weeks out before their insurance has to get renewed. And then, ask them, can you get a quote for them? Mechanical breakdown insurance is coming out, it's going to be expiring after 2 years. Well, 22 months out, you start talking to them about what is the implications of not having a warranty cover. And what comes out of this whole exercise is that you've got a robust system that's driving all this marketing, not left to the human element. And secondly, you've got clients that don't feel like you're bombarding them with nonsense because you only communicate with them when it's relevant. Now that example, you can lift, plug into my business, you can plug it into your business and just adapt it. So there's a very good example of job number one, job number two under lifetime value. Do you want to have a look at that course and then see if you've got any questions?
I think, Kevin, what we need to explain to people is what you mean with CRM.
Okay.
I know there's two big ones, isn't there? Salesforce and Keep.
Yeah, there's hundreds of these.
Probably always do, but what's this supposed to do? Let's say I know nothing. I've got no idea. What's a CRM? Because that's like your right hand. It's a
so that's a customer relationship management tool. Okay, so basically what will happen is if you had to go, let's say, back to the leads unit, when someone now comes into your world as a result of your compelling offer that you've put out there, that person's name will either manually or automatically get put into the system. Not only would that person be put into the system, but you can do it manually or automatically. It does it. In our case, it's always automated, where it puts it into the right categories. So that's a prospect, a high quality prospect. In the area where it's sourced from LinkedIn. So basically, you've put it into the system and you've allocated it correctly, so that when you're in your system, you know exactly what you're doing. That would be a CRM system. Now, that client or that prospect moves towards being now someone that's now going to become a hot prospect, and you're going to be meeting with that person. Well, then you would put that person on your sales board, because, you know, that person's come quite far down the funnel now, and now it's a very good chance that you're going to be converting. So you would go into your CRM and you'd go into your sales board, and there you'll see exactly how many you've got and how you're progressing with everyone. That's what a CRM's all about. Then the person gives you the money and becomes a client. And in our case, we're probably involved with them for about 3 weeks to get them nicely up and running. So then we've got another board inside the CRM that can at any given time tell us how we're progressing with the setting up of these people, making sure there's no delays. Then they become a client. Now you want to take that job number one and you want to automate certain things between you and that client. Well, you'll set that up all in the CRM. And that's a couple of examples, but not limited to what a CRM can do. Your reports of your activity, your KPIs, you can have it all in the CRM. So in my case, I say to people in my organization and previous 2 organizations, if it's not in the CRM, it's not in the business. So I'm not interested in any conversations about things unless it's in the CRM. Does that make sense?
Yes, there's a practical example. You've probably been exposed to this, where insurance company suddenly sends you a happy birthday wish. It's not that somebody actually remembered. This is in the CRM, totally automatic, and it goes out.
Yes, and you know that, like, for example, the CRM that we use, you can put an email template together, okay? And then basically what you can do is you can mail merge things into the email where it's specifically talking to that individual on an expiry date, a description of something. So when he reads it, it's written only for him, but you can be sending it out to thousands because the software allows you to mail merge it.
Yes, if it's used correctly, it's a very valuable tool.
Yes, yep. But if someone's going to remain a rugged individual for their whole lives and be a sole proprietor and just them in the business, all this stuff is probably like a waste of time, because the guy goes, no, write up in a black book. It's all in my head. I know what's going on. And then I say to people like that, then why are you actually reading or listening to my stuff? Because I told you right at the outset, this is not for you. And then you get some, comment like, no, I thought I'd just share it with you. And then, being the person I am, I say to them, well, I don't want you to share it with me. In actual fact, what I want you to do is go away and have a happy life.
It's simply not possible to remember all clients. Let's say you have a business and you have 50 people where you might remember 40 of them.
Yes.
But you know what? Sometimes you're going to drop the ball.
Yes.
With CRM, you will never drop the ball as long as it's programmed correctly.
Yeah.
And it is a learning curve. You'll have to sit down and work it, play with it.
Well, I'll tell you something now. If you talk about a CRM as an example, if CRMs could speak, they would be saying to the owner, why do you buy me every month? And the owner would be saying, well, obviously to use you. And he goes, no, you can just keep that in your head, and you can just keep that in a black book. You don't use me properly. I'm exponential by definition. You come in with your slow snail movement. I'm not actually designed for that. And that's why I'd like you to actually just leave. And I'll tell you why, because you're probably going to give my CRM a bad name. Now, that's the reality. Obviously, CRM companies are going to continue to take your money, even if you're not using it properly.
Well, that's very true. And of course, you're talking substantial money here because you pay per month. I've seen at Rebecca schools, and you really need that thing. You really need to be able to send out letters to everybody. Something might happen, a lockdown. So you need to, and they have like tags on it.
Yes.
So you can say active students, non-active students, perhaps students who stopped. We can get them back. Send them a short reminder. You can send an email to say, fill in this questionnaire, see if we can improve somewhere. Not many do, but you can even see if he opened his mail and how long he looked at it.
Exactly. And, talk about opening the email. I mean, we spoke about, email marketing early on, but in the previous videos, but, even if you send them a bespoke email out where you've mail merged things and you've got a link and they click on that link, then, you can intelligently say, well, what would they be wanting if they actually opened up that link? Oh, they'd be wanting this info. Then only to those people that have opened the link do you send then the second follow-up. Now, that can all be automated. You're not physically having to do it. And that's why, in the old days, I always say to people that are not really embracing CRMs and that properly, in the old days, you were competing against other people that just behaved like you. But today, more and more companies are taking advantage of all of this stuff, and they're going to surge ahead. You're not going to be able to keep up, especially if you're ambitious to wanting to grow a company. Obviously, if you just want to be yourself in the business, it's a no-brainer. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, but then you won't grow, and you will not grow exponentially. I mean, then you have to be a tough guy and you work 16, 17 hours a day. Well, somebody else will work 4 hours a day and will make more money than you.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that's the first one. Now, the second one is orchestrating referrals. Okay, so the first thing that I always say to people you've got to get right with orchestrating referrals is that you've got to actually understand the psychology of referrals. Okay, now many business owners think that by asking someone for a referral is that you're putting them out, Or some people would go along and say, oh, no, it's going to give the impression then that I don't know how to find my own clients. Now, that's all wrong. And the reason why we say this, and we've proved it now over decades, is that if your client comes through your system and they've really received something fantastic from you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, when at the right time you orchestrate a referral through them, what they will do is, okay, they will think about it. And then forward to that person whatever you've given them pertaining to the orchestration and the referral, for one simple reason: it's like a movie. If you've seen a crap movie, you don't tell anyone. If you've seen a good movie, you go, hey, Kev, wow, I saw this movie, you've got to go and see it. And the reason why you're doing that is because when you see me next time, you're wanting to say to me, Kev, did you enjoy that movie? In other words, you're wanting one up in your tribe. And that's exactly how referrals work. Give the person a great experience, and at the right time, orchestrate. So here's the rule for orchestrating referrals. Notice in your business, what opportunity do you have right now to orchestrate referrals? Think, in other words, who would be the perfect person to ask? And then lastly, introduce. In brackets, how can you introduce this opportunity? So it's notice, think, and introduce internally in your business. Now, guess what? You wanting to put the client in the same position when you request a referral through them, because what they would be doing is out there, they'll be noticing that they're in a conversation, or they'll be noticing that they're with someone that could become a client of yours. So they're also noticing, and then they think about you because you've asked them, and then they introduce you because you've given them an easy way to introduce. So all referrals take place based on notice, think, introduce. Now that there is the second part, okay, of the more sales unit. Now we have a metric that we use. So one day, long time ago, I was showing someone my more sales unit. He goes, he says, no, we all look at return on investment, return on marketing, return on sales. He said, you've got an ROR. I go, oh, that's interesting. What does that mean? He said, no, you've got a system where it's return on relationship. In other words, you're taking your portfolio of clients and you're providing lifetime value and you're orchestrating referrals, and then you can measure yourself against your number of clients. He said, that's an ROR, return on relationship. And then he lastly said to me, you can see it as a yield, a percentage, or He said you can have it as a monetary amount, like £3,000. And then many years ago, I met someone else that I explained it to him now, using the two that I gave you and talking about the ROR. He said, oh, so your clients are like your share portfolio. And to me, that was like big time resonating in my head. Oh, so my clients, after the first sale, it's like a share portfolio. What's my share portfolio looking like?
This is excellent because it means that you have powerful people, probably with your clients, who's going to bring you more clients. And they probably move in the circles which you would actually like to have clients.
Exactly. Exactly. They say birds of a feather flock together. What's that Afrikaans one with the father and son? Arkie na sy varkie or something?
Yeah, something like that. Arkie na sy varkie. I think it's more Dutch actually than Afrikaans. I mean, we don't really speak like that, but you're right.
I've never heard someone use that for a long, long time. I'm talking about Afrikaans people.
No, I haven't heard it since 1975, I think.
Yeah.
Some teacher said that to me, and I'm not sure why. She wasn't very kind. That's horrible, actually. But this reminds me.
One night I was sitting there on a night shift with a warrant officer. We were on this koppie. He was from Veiligheid, and I should drive the two of them around. And he said something, and I never heard anyone ever again in South Africa, Afrikaans people say. He said he was a lieutenant colonel, and he said to the warrant officer, ja, nee, ek ken hom, daai donne se lintsriem.
I'm just laughing at the background. I really cannot translate this, like a dirty rag, very dirty rag. I don't know how to translate it.
I love it when people use the language properly.
Well, that's actually where English come in a bit more. I mean, I've written books in English and Afrikaans, with only one Afrikaans. And would you believe, Kevin, the Afrikaans version was about 200 pages longer, even though it's exactly the same book. So I came to the conclusion that sometimes English is a bit shorter to explain. As we know, the shortest sentence in the English language is go, just the word go. But I'm not sure how you can translate that to Afrikaans unless you say voetsak, which is the same meaning in a way, but it's much longer to spell. That's fascinating. Ask me, was married to somebody who has language schools.
Yeah, no, you're right there. So those are the two. Now, bearing in mind, if we go back to the freedom through purpose, and we look at the 4 blocks there on that PDF, block number 3, the long-term vision. I've got a 25-year moving vision. It's a moving vision. So if you ask me today, it's 25. If you ask me 5 quarters ago, it was 25. And if you ask me in 7 quarters time, it's 25. It's moving. And it's 100 quarters in 25 years. So if you have a look at what we've gone through today in the more sales unit, then in my mind, I'm saying to myself, I've got another 100 quarters to keep improving on this floor, just like on the floor below me and the floor below that. So it gives me tremendous space in my head to know that I'm not under the cosh to have to do it all now, do it all now. Got plenty of time, as long as I stay in my building. The problem is with people is that they go seeking, especially nowadays on the internet, one more course, one more video, one more reading up, one more this, one more that, and then they got a building. I'm just using that as a metaphor. They got a building, but they never take the scaffolding down, so they never go live in their building. There comes a time where you must say, look, I don't have to read and I don't have to listen anymore. I need to just get in my building and do it. It's like people will go and do courses, and I tell my coaches this, because I'm not a coach. I just tell them as a businessman that you're not in the business of having to motivate people. Oh, I've been listening to this. I've been reading this. I don't think this will work. Well, I say to those people, it's a cop-out. So, you say to your brain, no, this is not going to work, or I don't like this. What it actually is, you're saying is, I don't want to go and do it. It's all in the doing. Because if I remember there at Malieskop, I watched this guy. So he put this, because at Malieskop, unlike infantry school where I think we had the Bren, at Malieskop we had the LMG. So he puts that out. First of all, he shows us some things on the board. Now you're supposed to be taking it in, caliber, length, weight, etc. Then he bends down there behind his desk and he brings the baby up, puts it on the desk. Now you can see it. Okay, so now the brain is listening, but it can also see it. Now, until you go out there and you start cocking it and taking it apart, only then do you discover how little you actually know about what he's actually told you and shown you. The stuff's exactly the same too. Until you actually go and do it, you probably get very little out of it. It's all in the doing. And for those who were in the military or received, counterinsurgency training, the police and that, you'll all know, the guys to show you, okay, and then say, right, get out of the hut, get out of the tent. Now we go play with it. And then you realize, oh, yeah, well, I've taken in very little. It's just the way the brain works. You've got to get that muscle memory.
All comes back to your chief courageous officer.
Yes. Oh, there's something I want to share with you there. Someone said to me, but Kev, if you've been at this for like 18 quarters, in a constructive way, obviously I've been doing a lot of this prior to that. How do you manage to go and find at the beginning of this year 1,600 hours? I mean, how do you? I said, it's very simple. If I had to stay in my comfort zone, in the courageous box of where I'm capable and confident, I reckon I would have found 200 hours. But I found 1,600 odd hours because I want to be more in the box of committing and being courageous. So you find more hours every year, providing you're going to commit and be courageous. You stay in your comfort zone, well, then there's very little you want to give up.
Well, that's where courage comes in.
Yes, absolutely. And that 1,650 obviously is me as the person. So it pertains to personal things, it pertains to business things. But if I'm not going to step over and commit and be courageous, I'll be lucky whether I would have found 200 hours. Now, there's something else to learn out of that, is that because I'm doing so many new things, that gives me the longevity not to want to give up and retire and things like that. Whereas if I stay in my comfort zone, I might just think to myself, no, I've had enough of this. Been doing it for decades. Time to give up. Time to call it a day. But if you're committed and you've been courageous on things that you're passionate about, well, isn't it a bit suicidal to want to stop all of it? But we know why most people retire. I'm not saying all. I've met one or two that were really upset that their company said, unfortunately, time's up. But most are wanting out because a number of years ago, they already started to dislike what they were doing.
Yes, but if they moved on and explore themselves, they might not have gotten tired of what they were doing. Yeah. So they stagnated, and that's where came the dislike. Yeah.
It's like I've got a friend, he's 44, and he says he's going to give it another 5 years, and then he's going to go self-employed. I say, well, okay, there's a good chance you won't go self-employed. Because if you can't go now with what you've got, he's got financial backing, himself financially. And I said, if you can't take a chance in the position you are now, you won't take a chance in 5 years' time. Because in 5 years' time, you're going to be entrenched even more in the way that you are. And every time he sees me, no, I'm going to go self-employed. I say, yeah. Don't tell me, when you're going to go. Just phone me and say, I am self-employed.
No, I think it gets harder the older you get. And let's be honest, most people at 50 does not have the same kind of energy they would have at 44 or 45. It is a magic number. Of course, it's all in your head.
Yes.
Still, if he hasn't left now, he won't. And I think a lot of people actually end up in business because they have no other choice.
I would say more today than before. In my days, when I was in my 30s, which was back late 80s, 90s, there it was still a world where it was heavily towards being employed. But today, sadly, people are being forced to go self-employed, and therefore, in my days, it was you voluntarily went self-employed. So you sort of had it in you because you wanted to go and you went and did it, and there was no pressure to go and do it. Whereas today, I see a lot of people are being forced to go, and then life can be tough for them. They're not really wanting to get into the trenches anymore. Roll up their sleeves.
But at the same time, there is something wonderful about your own business and the freedom which it gives you. Look, you work harder than before probably, but it is a nice idea. I mean, the box stops with you. You make the decisions, and the consequences, good or bad.
Yes.
It's your problem.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you should mention that, because they're saying, this COVID is becoming a good equalizer or a divider. For example, you get 120-year-olds having to go into the firm. They're sitting in these big offices and they're doing work and all of that. The fact that they've got to get there, the boss is there, and then they perform. Yeah. And now all of a sudden the boss through COVID is forced to make all 100 work at home. And some just take advantage of it because they're that type of person and they are pushing out the productivity. And the bosses are excited and the other ones are battling because they're getting very little supervision. So sometimes it's almost like I need to go to the office to be productive and effective because I don't do too well on my own.
There's something to say about that, about what you just said, at Legacy as well. When you walk into the studio, when you set up a home studio like this one, you're most definitely different than what you would be standing in the kitchen, making a quick cup of tea. And I think that it will be a good idea for many people to be ensure that they have a spot where they actually now will start working.
Yes. Yes.
But that was the same in the military and the police service as well, Kevin. I mean, look, you were always on duty in the police. That was the one thing that people never quite understood. You're still a policeman, even if you're not wearing a uniform or you're not signed on.
Yes.
You're still a policeman. If something happens, there's a duty upon you to do something. So you're always in that mindset, but you're in a damn more mindset when you're in uniform.
It's all about mindsets, of course. I'm telling you now, mindsets make your world, because mindsets determine your behavior, and your behavior determines your actions. So, you can come to Zoom and say, well, I'm going to use Zoom because for one-on-one meetings, I'm going to use Zoom because it's a tool for me to be able to speak to my brother or my sister, etc. And then someone else comes along and says, whoa, this is a transport system. I just need to come to Zoom. And my whole world opens up. I can deal with India. I can deal with the United States. Then, if I get my person to have a look at the features and benefits, this is an incredible venue, and I can do things in here that I wouldn't be able to do if we were in a hotel with 50 people, because I can put them into breakout rooms. I can do polling as we move along in this workshop. I can mix and match the people. I can move them from classroom to classroom. Where the hell and how do I do that when I've got 40 people in a conference room? It's a different ballgame.
Well, it's accessible. I mean, there's no way that Legacy could exist without Zoom. I mean, imagine if I had to fly down to South Africa or to Dubai or wherever the people are, London. Then you have to set up your cameras. You've got to get the room to do it. It's expensive. It's time consuming. So technology can work. It seems to me that these days, when I was listening yesterday to Sunday to Dries Weppener, the Tiffy, our first Tiffy, which we had on the show. And the one thing which he said to me off the record was, Chris, you need electronic skills. You need modern skills. Even if you want to fix a car, it's not just like grab a spanner and get it done. There's a lot of assistance which you can get from science, so to speak.
Well, you take, for example, where you earlier said about the mindset has to be right. I'm just thinking aloud. I mean, you can go to, let's say, colleges, army colleges. You can go to these institutions that study modern warfare, etc. And I'll give you an example. I could say to them, you know what? I can get 15 men, because in those days it was men. I can get 15 men from 6-1 mechanized battalion that had different job descriptions in, let's say, the biggest campaign we had in Angola after the Second World War was Protea. Protea was the big one. So I'm not saying it was afterwards, but certainly up until Protea, it was the biggest one. So let's say 6-1 was involved there. So what I could do is I can get you a RATL commander. I can get the officer commanding for the day. I can get a 2IC. I can get the guy who was in charge of the tuffy to make sure those things were working correctly. Right. So now I can go to the parachute battalion. I can get the SO1 ops guy, whoever it was, back there in the tent. I can get a company commander. I can get your platoon commander and a platoon sergeant. Then we moved to that unit. I was in 3-2 battalion. On the ground, we had a commandant. And we had a platoon commanders, and we had this. And then we also had the reconnaissance unit and special forces. So I've got 50 men that did various jobs. And what we're going to do is we're going to get your lieutenant colonels that are on course, and they're doing now that type of warfare. So what we're going to do is we're going to get that 50 guys that are on the course, and what they're going to do is they're going to come into this environment. One of the generals is going to open up, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put them into breakout rooms where they're going to go and meet these people. These people are going to give them a 5-10 minute overview, but most important of all, they'll then start asking questions. So just make sure that when you come, as 40, 50 lieutenant colonels doing a staff course, make sure you got your questions, because that's what this whole thing's all about. You can have them for 10 minutes and then put them into all the breakout rooms and that. Now, when that's all done and dusted, how would you have given that experience to those 40 lieutenant colonels doing the staff course to be a colonel? How would you have done that if you'd gone offline? You would either have to have flown 50 men over here to the UK, because they're South African men all there, or from wherever they are. Some of them are probably in Dubai or whatever. Or the 40 lieutenant colonels would have had to get on a plane and go to South Africa. Instead, if they are physically at a college here, at let's say Sandhurst, they just go up to their rooms and they plug in. And the 50 people from 6-1, 3-2, the parachute battalion, the reconnaissance unit, and that were all sitting at their respective places, home, work, or whatever it is. And you've brought that all together. Now, let me tell you, that example I've given you, if you'd have put it out today to that colonel that's in charge of that college, and the 40 people there, and the 50 people that are going to be doing the talking, the vast majority will say, it can't be done. And then they'll go on to say, well, you're going to remember this won't work and that won't work. So what are you basically saying is you won't pull it off at all, because how are you going to pull it off? Whereas I'm going to be able to pull off about 96%, but at least I pulled it off.
Also about time, Kevin. Time is money. So if you had to fly all these people in, let's say you actually had the budget to do it, which you probably don't, then you have to put them somewhere. Now you have to feed them at your cost. Then you have to pay for them to live somewhere.
Yes.
It's just a nightmare. But this technology has changed the way we do business.
Yep. And they're at Sandhurst and they're in their rooms. And then after the session, they go down to have tea. They go back into their respective rooms, and the instructors, they all say, okay, guys, we're now going to discuss what we've just experienced in the last 2 hours. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of this? Oh, the guy in charge that Kevin did say, if we've got questions afterwards that we didn't ask, we'll just get the questions to him and he'll get it back to us in 72 hours. Well, how are you going to coordinate all of that? And then you get some idiot saying, oh, well, they came out, we would have been able to have, given them a lekker braai. Oh, guys, please, man.
Yeah, but that's not the purpose of a meeting. The purpose of a meeting is not to give a lekker braai.
Exactly.
The purpose is to tap the guy's brain.
Yep. And if they have, there's a high probability that they won't come over, so there'll be no braai anyhow.
Well, I don't know if I have meat in the UK, but I've worked with many very wealthy business people, and the one thing they always say to me is, we don't pay for lunch and we don't have time for business dinners. We have better things to do.
Yes.
And that's where they make their money, when they have better things to do. They don't have that mindset to go and have a few drinks. And not saying it's not happening. Of course, we'll do it for charity purposes, events, they will do that. But it's not part of their business setup.
Exactly. That's why I say this to people out there, you know, if you can be doing it in the cloud, if you can be doing it in the cloud and you're not, there's someone else going to be doing it. It's different if you've got a business that is offline. Well, you know, then it has to. But if it can be done in the cloud, there are going to be others that are going to be doing it. And it's going to be, you know, at your cost in the long run.
Well, and it actually works. I mean, as we've seen with Legacy, we do sometimes have technical problems to get the people on.
Oh, for sure.
But while we're running there, it's fairly good. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you in South Africa, which people say, oh, you know, bad internet, you know what? You don't need that much, and it works. It works well.
Yeah.
And I was just making a joke about the beef in the UK. I know there's meat there, very very nice meat. As
I'm
well.
not a big meat eater.
Before someone, you know, writes us nasty letters here.
I'm not a big meat eater anymore. I stick mostly to fish and chicken. But no, the meat's good over here. Let's not kid ourselves. They might not be able to braai as well, but the meat is good. Right, so any other questions regarding the ground floor, first floor, second floor, third floor, fourth floor?
No, but I'm excited because all of these things are coming together, Kevin. You know,
Yes.
and I think they're all important. That's the other thing which came up to me while you were talking. You cannot leave one step out. It will screw up the end result, I'm quite sure.
Well, just what I always say to people is that when you go into your building, even if it's an imaginary building, see it as a 5-dimensional business. You've got a ground floor where you do all your thinking and that, and then you proceed to decide, am I going to the first floor, second, third, fourth? See it as a 5-dimensional business and know that every quarter you're going to improve on each of the floors. And the one thing that's nice about this is that, you know, after a couple of quarters, the improvement is no longer incremental. It starts to compound. So it's almost like a 100-meter sprinter. You know, he uses a lot of energy, or her, when they come out in that first maybe 10, 15, 20 meter. But once they come upright, they're using less energy. It's the same thing with this approach here. But for God's sake, you've got to take down the scaffolding and start living inside your building. Otherwise, you're just going to be like many others who say, it doesn't work for me. Well, how can it work if you're not living inside it? And for me, what's a good equalizer when I'm in the building is to play games. I call them rev games, revenue. So my best approach when I go into my building is to decide, okay, for the day, how many games am I going to play? So that I'm not just walking around and mucking about. So if I'm down on the ground floor, and we're all now familiar with GROW, G-R-O-W. So if I'm down on the ground floor and I'm wanting to go and play with the more sales unit, I do what I call a short version of GROW. I take the G and the R. I say to myself quickly, right, I'm going to go play a game up on the fourth floor. What do I want? Why do I want it? And what type of result do I want to achieve in that game? And then off I go. Don't have to worry about obstacles and who's going to help me. Just a little short GROW, G-R. The brain loves that because then when you're getting up to that floor, you know why you're going there. You know, I'm going up there to the leads unit. Okay, I now know I'm going on to LinkedIn, and I know I want to reach out to 20 people and comment. Okay, so I'm going to see now whether I can play a game of commenting, and the result is I'm going to try and comment on about 20 postings. It gives you then that direction course to be able to see something through, rather than just going up there and saying, oh, I'll just be busy. Because then you might discover you're half a game in and all you've been doing is just being busy. There's no direction. So scaffolding down and play games inside your building. I call it the rev game.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
Otherwise, you're up there, you can be nafi, you can be ballenspakking, jippergatting. And get into the building, do your business and get out. You don't have to stay 16 hours in the building and you're pissing the wife off. The wife's so pissed off with you, she stopped complaining. No time for her. Oh, no, sweetheart, got to go work. Well, the income doesn't seem to indicate that. Yeah. The daughter says, why do you say, yeah, mom? Oh, sweetheart, I've been telling dad for 10 years now. He's always busy.
Yeah, you're quite right. I cannot disagree with this. I mean, life should be pleasure as well. I mean, there should be.
Yeah.
I enjoy legacy. It's really nice. Every time I speak to somebody, it's like nice for me to do so.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, if it becomes a job for me, and it's really like, oh God, no, I have to see this guy again, or then I'll stop doing it.
Yep. I met a guy that was an RSM at the the commanders, Royal Marines, the commander unit. And I mean, those boys are very well trained. So we're chatting one day, and he had now, after I think at 40 or 45, they can get out. So he took like the package. He's getting into the business world. And one day we were sitting, we were chatting about a couple of things. I'll never forget it. He actually said to me, yeah. He said, I should tell like the corporals and the sergeants when they looked very busy. I should say to them, you do realize that lazy people, you do realize, he said, Kevin, I said to them, you do realize that busy people are lazy bastards. I had to pause for a moment. I didn't actually get it the first time round. But then when I thought about it, what he's basically saying is, guys, I'm checking you and you're telling me you're busy, but you're stupid busy. You're not thinking. Now, there's a guy that knows how to work with people. Okay, it's not for everyone, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, he was measuring effectiveness.
Yeah.
Against running like a rat in a little circle and you get nowhere. But I think most of us are actually guilty of it.
Yeah.
And that is where your system comes in, because your system gets the mind to focus.
Yeah. But I tell you something now, just talking about those Royal Marines, the commando group and that, I mean, wow. They're so unassuming when you speak to them, but boy, oh boy, they tough buggers. And their training is absolute world class. I mean, I would go as far as to say that if we had, let's say they could second 5, 6 platoons or whatever to 3-2, they would have been magic with us. I'm not sure about the Americans, because with Americans there seems to be a lot of, oh, no, we can't do that. Where's the McDonald's stand? Where's the Coca-Cola stand? That's got to come with. Whereas with these guys at the Royal Marine, they don't need that stuff. So once they got down there and they acclimatized, they would be able to do it. They're more like South Africans too, in the sense that they wiry. They're of lightweight, whereas if you look at the Marines in the US and their Navy SEALs, they're big and bulky. And I think that's because they've got so much equipment around them. Whereas, you take a guy from the Navy SEALs, if you just say to him, look here, the Pumas are going to drop us and we're going to walk in overnight and then we're going to walk back and all of that. Where is he going to get the food to feed that body of his? Because that body has been so used to, being heavily pushed with big amounts of food and protein and all of that. I don't think they would be able to do it. Because you can't say, I'm building this massive body to be able to do the big walk. But when you are doing the big walk and tomorrow you're going to walk further and the next day you're going to walk further, how are you going to replenish that body? Well, I suppose because they got the equipment and the vehicles and that, they don't have to worry about what I'm saying.
No, that's true. And of course, the funny thing about the Royal Marines is that they have the South African song, which they use as their marching.
Yes. Part. Sorry, Marie.
Sorry, Marie. It's the funniest thing to hear, that brass band starting up, Sorry, Marie, and here comes the Royal Marines. No, by tough people. I think the SBS squadron is much higher rated in my world. The SAS is not badly rated at all.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And well, the Americans, the Marines, 1/3 of them are overweight. Not me saying so, that's their own reports. So how they think they are ever going to survive. It's a funny thing to me. I think in the Special Forces questions and answers, I believe it was Frans Fourie who said he's never been in a gym in his life, well, not more than 5 hours. That the gym guy will not make Special Forces selection in South Africa. And I think Jack Greef said the same thing. Jack Greef came out and he said, you have to be hard, you have to be tough. And that's the one thing which I found in the Royal Marines as well. They are tough people, inherently. They will take the punch, they will take the pain, they will go through it. I do not think the Americans can do it unless something changes. But I don't see it. It's just my opinion, of course. Doesn't matter.
Right. So the question that needs to be asked again, did you get some clarity today on your more sales unit?
Yes, thank you.
More confidence?
A lot more confidence.
New capability?
Improved. Thanks.
Good. Well, I say then also to the audience, there'll be a PDF down at the bottom of this video. And likewise, if you felt you got clarity today, some confidence and new capability, obviously we're not charging for this, but what we would appreciate, any donation, no matter how big or small, to the unit that I was in, details down at the bottom. And then till next time what we'll be doing is we'll be concentrating on freedom through relationship. That's the next mindset. And that focuses on the type of questions we use, okay, and can be used in many industries when wanting to close the sale. So it's freedom through relationship. We use those questions also for partners we work with. We use those questions when we employ people. That's why it says on the tin what it says, freedom through having proper relationships.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that.
It's a
As always.
pleasure.
And I hope that the people will join us. And if you join us in this episode and you haven't somehow, just go back and look at the previous ones. It's important. Don't try and
Yes.
jump over system. It's not going to work. Other people tried.
Oh, yeah, you've got to go one step at a time.
If all of this was in one course, how long would you have him there?
I would say realistically, if we were working with a guy that's got a business or a woman that's got a business, in other words, not on their own, because I have no experience with working with people like that, but if they've got a business, then basically what would happen is we'd probably look at, because I don't do courses, but if they were to make this a course, it would probably be over 2 days. So we basically run for about two games in the morning, 2 games in the afternoon, next day 2 games, 2 games. So basically 8 games.
Okay. No, that answered the question for me. Thanks. I appreciate your time, Kevin.
Okay.
And we'll see you next week, same time, same place.
Fantastic. Cheers.